Mm. Everyone's here. Looks like. Mm. I love your choice in attire. Mm.
Well, these are rare commodities, so
Yeah, actually, I think this is one we don't even sell these, do we? Are these the ones that he just made for us?
there are 4 in existence that I know of.
And 2 of them are currently on this show.
That's right.
Nice.
They have the
Um,
double
there's
drawstring on each side, which I've never seen before, and I didn't actually really notice that until someone pointed it out this weekend.
really. I just noticed it now. Why is there 2?
I have no idea. I don't know if it's the model, if it's a certain kind of sweatshirt. I want to ask Ken about it, actually.
Well, maybe we can ask Colton. Maybe Colton has an opinion on it.
What's
Hey,
up, guys?
Colton, why would there be 2 drawstrings on one side of a hoodie, on each side of a hoodie?
2 drawstrings on each side.
Yeah.
That is, I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, I haven't
What happens
either.
when, does anything different happen when you pull like one of them
I'm a,
as opposed to the other?
I'm afraid to pull the long one or the short one. I don't know. I don't know what they do. It's crazy because you only have 2 on your tier 1.
Yeah,
Like every other
Interesting.
one we've ever seen.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, it's we asked the hard questions here, Colton. I don't know if you noticed that.
Absolutely.
Uh, how you doing?
Doing good. Just got done. I went and picked up some lumber. Had to build a new doghouse for the dogs. So I just got back from that.
So, and you had a long drive home this week.
Yeah, it's like 15 hours or so from Spartanburg to here. Um, we did about like 5 hours um, to get to Cookville and then finish out the last 10 to get home Monday. So I've been home for like 2 days now. Did a full day of training yesterday, so body doesn't feel too bad. Feels more beat up from the drive, honestly, just from sitting there so long.
I feel a lot of times after I leave competitions, I'm like, man, I feel worse after just standing for 2 or 3 days in a row than I do after like a normal day of coaching, moving, doing all my normal activities, because it's just that static position, sitting or standing. That's like, if you don't practice that a lot, it can totally
Yeah,
mess you up.
yeah, exactly. If your body's not used to it, for sure, it's a different
Yeah,
stimulus.
Brian. Before you came on, Brian was just saying that how he was talking to Jr. and how they feel like they're just exhausted and beat up.
I didn't like think about it too much. I go there to to do the commentary for the broadcast, and I was basically sitting on a plyo box the whole day, like leaning in, looking at the computer, looking at them, and then I was like, man, like I did that probably like 30 hours or something over 3 days. Like that's not that great for my body, probably.
Yeah, for sure. I always do I think it's called the couch stretch whenever I have to drive or sit very long. Get the hip flexors loosened up, helps a lot. It's crazy how quickly they get like super tight just from sitting in a car.
Do you do all the driving, or do you guys trade it off?
I drove all except for the last like hour and a half on the way home. Allie drove so I could work on editing some YouTube videos. But I drove the whole way there and then almost the whole way back. Allie makes me a little bit seasick sometimes because she'll like be jamming out to songs, whatever, and like maybe jerking the steering wheel. So usually I like to drive.
I used to have a friend that was like, he kind of like pumped the gas a little bit, and
Mm,
it always drove me nuts. I'm like, what are you doing? But I never thought about that. It might be in the rhythm of the music or something like that.
mm, mm.
Do
Yeah.
you who picks the music on a trip like that?
We usually listen to like pretty similar genres of music. So when I'm driving, we kind of listen to stuff that both of us usually listen to. And then
Mhm.
when she drives, she'll pick the music, and it's just like she'll like we listen to like One Direction and just like things like that on the way back, and a lot of old songs that she used to listen to like in high school. So I was just trying to like tune it out and
I just
You know,
tuned it
I
out.
I was actually, I think I was living internationally during the time that One Direction became popular, and so I like totally missed the entire boat with regards to them. And then a couple years after I was back, I was like sick, and someone knew I was sick, and they're like, hey, I like this band One Direction. Is this a girl that I know, and she sent me this, and I watched this documentary on like the origins of their band and how they came up to be, and I actually thought they were pretty decent. Like when they all sang together, I thought they had a good sound. And so ever since then, I haven't minded their stuff too much, but you tune it out. So that's fine.
Yeah, I haven't given them a chance really. I haven't really like sat down and listened to any of their music and really paid attention, I guess.
Do you listen to any podcasts or switch over to podcasts? Kind of, because I go back and forth. Like I do a lot of driving myself, and like I don't know. Sometimes I'll just switch off, or I'll pick a genre of music that I normally don't listen to, and then I'll just like put it on that channel just to so that way I don't know, just kind of up to date or just give it a shot. But how about, I mean, do you listen to any podcasts as well?
Yeah, I listen to most of the time if I'm driving alone, I'll be listening to a podcast, and then when Allie and I are driving together, we'll listen to a podcast until she kind of her tolerance runs out, and then she has to listen to music. She kind of gets tired of listening to people talk, but
What type
I
of
could probably listen to podcasts all day.
what type of podcast?
A lot of like in the CrossFit space, listen to them. I listen to a lot of like MMA and wrestling podcasts.
Nice.
Those are usually the main genres.
I know there are some some people, then athletes especially, that they like to listen to things that are outside of the realm of CrossFit just to take their mind away from it because they're in it all the time. But any particular reason you like the CrossFit stuff?
I think there's a lot of information that you can get from people, whether they're analyzing programming or just talking about training and things like that. There's different information that you can get, and you can, if it's helpful, then you can use it and improve your own training or recovery or whatever. It's just all information basically, and just trying to learn to help my own fitness.
And if it's not good information, then you can learn. You don't have to make that mistake. Someone else can have made it for you.
Yeah.
So even when you're resting and you're driving, you're putting yourself in situations that have an opportunity for you to take something away that you can then potentially take back to training or to competition and better yourself.
Yeah, I don't really like to have, I don't know, just like pure downtime. So even like when I'm working on things to the farm, typically I'm working alone, so I'll have headphones in and I'll listen to an audiobook or a podcast or something and just try and make like all my time useful. And yeah, I don't really like. Also don't like to like. I'm not someone who will sit down and relax and just like watch Netflix for an evening. I kind of get more anxiety when I do that. I feel like I have to be doing kind of something productive. I enjoy doing most of that stuff, so it's not super tiring for me. It kind of gives me energy when I can listen to something and learn something new.
Does it ever bother you, or do you ever ask yourself, like, how come I can't just sit still?
I just kind of accepted it and use it to my advantage. I don't have any wasted days where I'm just laying around the house or anything. There's always something to do and something to work on and improve on, whether it's learning something about fitness, doing recovery work, or just working on the house or something outside.
Yeah, and you've been working on the house and the barn specifically where you're training there quite a bit this year. What's the progress like there? How close are you to where you want it to be?
We're like probably 95% of the way done. I can kind of show you, maybe you can see up here. So we pretty much have all the plywood up. We just have that corner up there and then above the garage door to do. And it's kind of to the point where like it's functional. So I've been working on other stuff, but and there's like a little bit around the outsides that we had to put rubber matting on still. But again, like it's 95% functional. So like the next big thing will be building the rig. So hopefully I'll be able to start on that in the next couple of weeks. And then once we have that done, I mean, we'll pretty much be done.
Do you feel like there's anything that you would like to be able to do training wise that you can't do there?
I'll be able to do essentially everything. I mean, I have plenty of space to do like muscle ups, wall balls, rope climbs inside. My rope goes up to 18 feet. I have a hole that goes up into the attic so I can get a full 18-foot rope climb. I mean, I'll have peg boards. I have all the machines, all the space for, Olympic lifts. I have all the basic equipment, your dumbbells, sandbags, kettlebells, things like that. Really pretty much have everything. The only thing would be there's not like a ton of space to do like a sled push, like a long sled push. The dimensions of the gym are about 32 by 40 feet. So, other than that, I can do pretty much anything that I need to do.
And then you always got your bike for riding outside.
Mm-hmm.
I remember asking you about that after the semifinals, and you said the last year or so, you've been riding the bike quite a bit.
Yeah, I ride it to the instead of driving to the farm, because we have a farm truck and that just stays at the farm. And when the weather allows, I usually just ride my bike to the farm and back. So I'll get a little bit of extra kind of zone 2 working and just bike working when it's nice out.
So I think it's probably worth talking a little bit about this past weekend. I don't know if you guys listened to any of the stuff that's been put out since there. There is some good stuff out there. Coffee Pods and Wads has put out 2 vlogs that were quite nice. Will Brandstetter made one on for the Sevon podcast to kind of recap the final event for both the men and the women. But this was if you're not familiar, Colten has he's competed at all the biggest competitions in the world. 1 time at Dubai, I believe. 1 time at Wadapalooza, I believe. 2 times at Rogue. And so this is, some might look at something like a Crash Crucible and say, man, like Colten's 3 times games athlete. He's competed at all the biggest stages. Why would he go and do something like this? Well, I'm asking you.
Oh. I saw you pulling something up there. I didn't know if you were waiting for that to get up. But yeah, so I wanted to compete at Crash just because I knew JR just from like the Savon podcast and kind of that whole crew. And through that, I learned about his competition and some of the things and tendencies that he does there. And I knew that he usually gets a few pretty high level athletes to come compete there. And like last year, he had Luke Parker won the event, and he qualified for the games the following year. And of course, he's had Taylor Self and Jason Hopper compete there. So he usually has a handful of high level guys there. So that was one thing that drew me there. I knew I'd get to compete against a few other pretty good guys and test myself against them. And then another really big thing was that he does some kind of unique implements there. For example, this last weekend we saw Toza bar on the trapeze bar. We saw the flip sled and the handstand walk course, and even like the pegboards. Pegboards aren't something we see a ton of times in competition, so getting to do that was good as well. So I really wanted to go there and test myself on those different implements we don't see a lot of, and also that you don't, like a lot of people don't have to train on in their gym. Like I don't have the trapeze pull-up bar. I think I'm gonna get one soon though. So it was nice to be able to feel that in competition. I don't have all the obstacles that we use for the handstand walk course, so it was nice to get to test myself on those, and it's different things like that. And so those were kind of the 2 main things that drew me there. And also I like competing. I'm a CrossFit athlete, so it's like I should be competing. It's kind of like my thing, right? So I didn't qualify for Rogue, and my next competition isn't going to be until January for Wadapalooza. So I wanted something else to do in between as well.
Yeah, we
Kind of nice
talked.
to have like 2 off-season comps.
Yeah, we spoke to Pat Vellner a couple of weeks ago, and he kind of said this thing. He's like, I have this fitness. I need to, I should be using it somewhere. So to get out there and compete, kind of makes sense. And obviously there are times where athletes have injuries or family commitments in the off season, maybe that prevent them from being able to do that. Female athletes maybe get pregnant, need to take some time off, or if you're married to someone who gets pregnant, some stuff like that. But I do think that for the most part, yeah, when you're in those years where you can compete hard and compete well and compete healthy, that it's good to do it. You mentioned several of the kind of new implements or stuff that you wanted to test yourself with. I think the one that you left off was probably the Zercher yoke carry, which is something that I have not seen. I've seen it in training. I've never seen it in competition before. How would you say that you did with those things relative to what you expected to do?
So let's see, I guess starting with event 1, I guess the 2 unique things you saw was kind of the pegboard and the Zercher carry. So the Zercher carry I think went pretty well for me. We didn't get to adjust the height, so it was probably like 1 notch higher than I would like to have. But I just had to kind of pick it up and make sure that it wasn't kind of too far forward or backwards or to hit the ground. So that was kind of good to get a feel on. Pegboard is the only other time I've seen those in competitions at the games. I just got those put up in the gym home in like 2 or 3 weeks before the competition. So before that I hadn't done pegboards in for like 4 or 5 months. So I mean, it's good to see progress there.
What do you think about the fact that he didn't allow you to adjust the yoke height?
I mean, it would have been kind of a pain in the ass to do that for all the heats, unless I think the simplest way to do it would be to say, here you have a tall, medium, and short option to pick from, and that maybe would have made it a little more simple. But I mean, I don't think it affected the competition really at all. I'm the shortest guy there, and it essentially had no real effect on me or my time on the event. So I think that was fine.
Yeah, and I think it was light enough that the tallest guys who had to do, maybe even mostly of a squat to pick it up, once I got it in the air, they had no concern about it swinging and hitting the ground. They could walk pretty freely with it. So I think it worked out well also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the trapeze bar, total bar, the only thing there was grip. Definitely got my grip more than I thought it would. But other than that, it's pretty similar to a total ring. And I guess probably the main thing that I had to talk about would be the handstand walk course. When I practiced it, I used barbells and some pirouettes. And I had them spaced a little bit more narrow, or I guess closer together than what ended up being at the comp. So kind of in practice, I could do like step over with my right hand and then step towards the next obstacle with my left and step back over with my right and kind of had that rhythm. And then at the event, they were a little further spaced, so I couldn't quite make those steps. It was a little too big of a step for me. So once I'd get to the fourth or fifth one, it started to be a pretty big reach. I just didn't adjust to that well during the event. So that was kind of a good thing to know and to practice moving forward.
Yeah, and actually, as you're saying that, I'm actually like remembering in my mind, and I don't think it was just you. Obviously fatigue is also a factor, but there were quite a few athletes that would get towards that, specifically the last hurdle there, and then have a little bit of a readjustment, and sometimes they would be able to save it, and sometimes they weren't. And speaking of saving it on the handstand walk, you had a pretty epic save on the stairs there towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, I needed to save that one. I needed to save the one before that probably, and then I might have won the competition. But I do the ramp and stairs quite a bit here at home because I do have a set of those. I do those probably 5 days a week, and
wow.
so yeah, it's just I'm very stubborn. Like I never want to fall. Like I'll be pretty upset for the rest of the day when I fail one of those. So that's just from like fighting it a lot in training, and you kind of get good at making those close saves, I guess.
So that practice pays off. Do you do the ramp, stair like JR had, or do you always do ramp, stair, ramp?
No, I just have one set, so I've got one ramp and one stairs. So I just do the one. I'm not sure we'd have a ton of room to set it up, two of them anyway, or store them.
And it was kind of a sneaky little element that until you did it, you might not necessarily realize, but in the down and back, you had to do the stair and then turn around and do it again. And there were a lot of athletes that would kind of get to that the stairs at the end, either going one way or the other, and spend a lot of time there.
Mm-hmm.
How much harder are the stairs and the ramp for you?
I used to be a lot worse at the stairs, and I pretty much only did the obstacle going stairs first for a long time. And then I kind of started sucking at the ramp because I didn't do it forever. But I'd say neither one of them is really harder than the other for me from a skill point. It's definitely more fatiguing to go up the stairs. I think it's just kind of a big step if you have really short arms, maybe. But yeah, it's more fatiguing to go up the stairs for sure than it is to kind of inch your way up the ramp.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought the event was kind of cool. I like the moguls as an addition there because of what they demand in terms of if you're working backwards. I had recently gone to the Power Monkey camp, and Dave Durante does a handstand station there where he talks about, you see people doing these high skill things that you would maybe eventually like to be able to do, but most people they'll skip some of the steps along the way, and some of them probably shouldn't be skipping those steps. And when it comes to handstand walking, being able to do shoulder taps with control on the wall, facing it or facing away from it, is probably something that you should be able to do well before you're trying to do handstand walk. And if you're just trying to walk over those moguls and you have the prerequisite skill of shoulder tap, it's probably not going to be that hard. But if you've skipped that skill, it might be a lot more challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
PC, any questions you want to ask Colten about Crash?
No, not. I mean, what were your expectations? Obviously, going in, being you and James being really the only two games athletes there. Is there like an expectation? Going to like, I hate calling these regional competitions because JR does such a great job, and the level of talent there is actually pretty high. Do you have like an expectation that, hey, I should win this? And when you don't and you find yourself in second place, I mean, is that disappointing at all, or do you just appreciate the idea of just being able to compete?
I definitely wanted to win.
Mhm.
There's no world in which I go to a competition not wanting to win. That being said, I did my best not to stray from my programming and kind of my training plan for the whole year
Mhm.
in prepping for this. So I didn't really have like a build up or a taper going into it. And, those other guys may have done the same thing too. But yeah, I wasn't going all in trying to win with the main goal was not to go down there and win. I definitely wanted to win, but the main goal was to go test myself, kind of see how things are going so far and developing throughout the off season, and test myself on those unique implements, and also just keep on building competition experience and playing with different things, nutrition wise, recovery wise. Even
Mhm.
something like traveling, I probably should have got there a day earlier than I did. I think that would have definitely helped my body feel a little bit better for the first day of the competition. And so that's something to know going forward that when I have a long commute like that, I can't show up the day before it starts and expect to perform at my best. And even just different, you can kind of play with your mindset going into a competition and, what mindset is most productive for you and how do you perform best. So
Yeah.
getting to do things like that in an environment like this that you could say is like low risk because it's not part of the game season
Mhm.
is really good to do. And walking away in second place, Austin did a great job. He's extremely consistent and he deserved the win. But I did not leave there feeling like I was the second fittest man there. I won the final four events, three of them fairly dominantly. And in my mind, I was the fittest guy there. I had some execution issues and I couldn't recover from it. But yeah, I just felt like I ran out of time to finish out the comeback.
Did you get to
Well,
spend any time with Austin to get to know him at all?
We talked a few times. I didn't talk to him a ton, but I feel like he's somebody if I talk to too much, I might end up becoming friends with him. So I'm going to try and avoid that.
You guys do have
I definitely see that.
some strange similarities.
Yeah, I could definitely see that though.
He actually
Um,
mentioned in an interview that you may have talked to him about possibly doing a competition with him at some point.
Yeah, Scott Tetlow, we're kind of looking for doing a team for Waterpalooza, and we're kind of looking
Nice.
for a third guy. We had a couple other people that just didn't work out. But yeah, I kind of mentioned it to Austin. I'm not sure if we'll do anything with it. I think scores are due in next week or so, and so I don't know if anything will come of it. But I
Well,
mentioned
in
it
the
to him.
case that you guys do the qualifier, you're my bet to win the thruster ladder, the three of you.
Absolutely.
between him and Tetlow, yes.
Mhm.
And Hatfield, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
exactly.
I think
Oh,
that the
definitely.
most difficult part of that workout for the three of you would be deciding who to place where, because I think that it's a skill you're all pretty good at.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's no doubt.
And
Another
what you
question
know,
another
go ahead,
question I
Patrick.
had was regarding the P score. Obviously you finished second, and like you said, you're pretty dominant. But this is the first time you've kind of been introduced to that type of scoring system. I mean, actually, the first time it's been implemented. The earlier iteration was the Z score. But your thoughts on the P score? I mean, do you have thoughts on it, or you know, uh, do you think it's effective?
Yeah, I love the P score. I like it a lot better than the standard scoring system. It kind of goes back to like that old CrossFit documentary. Every second counts. With the P score, every second truly does count because you can get fractions of a point from going a little bit faster, regardless of where if there's somebody right in front of you or not. And it also could prevent people from maybe like punching a workout. Like if you have a workout and like I'm going to be bottom in 10 in this for sure. You maybe won't try super hard because you know that you can give maybe a mediocre effort and kind of get the same amount of points regardless. But there's a threat of getting a 0 for not doing well enough, and that's going to make people push a little harder. And I do like that it rewards dominance a little bit, because if you do win a workout, like the final event, it was like a 3-minute workout and I won it by a minute. If you do a standard scoring system, that I'd still only get, like a 6 or 7 point separation or whatever it would be for that competition with those number of athletes, regardless of whether I won by a minute or a second. So I think that rewards fitness better. I guess the only thing that people could say about it is, like in the first event, for example, I think on the men's side, there was 9 or 10 guys that got a score of 0, but they didn't all get, the same real score on the workout. They didn't all like get capped at the same point, or I think one person actually finished. But like Tyler, I talked to him a little bit after crash, and he said the alternative is they get negative points. So I think, and then Brian said afterwards, you give them the choice. You guys can all either share a 0, or you guys can all, be separated but have negative points. So that there's the other side of that, and I kind of wouldn't mind if they did do negative points. So that might be kind of interesting.
It would, I'm sure it would elicit some special responses. We, when Tyler and I he's been bouncing these ideas in different versions of this off me for a couple of years now. And the first time that he showed me a scoring system that had the negative scores, I mean, he showed me, he's like, this is the competition. And if we applied this scoring method to it, look at how many people would have negative scores. And in some cases, it's like negative 50. Like it's dramatic. But the reason that it's important to realize that is that the previous version took the last score and the first score as the 2 data points. And so in a case where someone was having a negative 50, but that person was so much worse than the field that they were skewing everyone else's scores up, even the other people that didn't necessarily do that good, because they were just pulling that tail end of a bell curve so far away. And so it's, I do like this model better than the previous one. I do think there's potentially still some room for conversation, but basically what they're saying to those guys in that first test, and to any other athletes, no matter how many there were that are scoring a 0, is that you weren't good enough to place on the curve against the field you competed at. And that last part is the thing that I really like about the P scores. It's against the field you competed against. So all of the scores are relative to whoever is there and whatever they were able to do that day. And if you are exceptionally good, then you get rewarded for it. And if you're not good enough, then you don't get any points. But there were athletes that didn't get any points and were still able to finish in the top 5 of the competition by the end of the weekend. So, and why were they able to do that? Because they were really good at some other things.
Yeah, exactly. I think it would be interesting to try out using negative scores sometime. So maybe have someone, because there's certain events or certain movements where some people just have huge deficiencies, like whether it's like a strength deficiency or skill deficiency. It would be kind of interesting to see someone, like maybe they're really good at everything else and they have an 80-point lead in first place, and then they drop a negative 50, and now they're in second.
Yeah, because then the margin for a swing goes to beyond 100 points, which would potentially, especially in a competition that may test, specific skills, as Crash tested in abundance there, and as a couple of the guys there talked about, it's like, if you don't have this skill, then what are you going to do? And there was, I would give the credit to the athletes in this regard. Like, I did not see anyone that was just giving up. Like, everyone was still trying to figure it out. And I think a lot of athletes actually accomplished things on the field of play for the first time, or maybe more often than they thought they would, whether it was a new thruster PR or going over the ramp and the stairs more often than they ever have, or a few of the other things that you had mentioned. I just want to kind of ask this about you, because we talked about you and Austin, and you guys are, I would say, more reserved, kind of just put the head down and go to work type of guys. And then you have obviously James over there, Daniel Coots was there, and a couple of these other guys that are like the total other end of the spectrum. James is potentially the most outgoing guy that I've been around in the sport. When you're like warming up, when you're, let's say, walking over and you see James over there prior to the event, leading up to the event, you say you're always processing things in your mind. What do you think about these guys that are like, they're talking to everyone, they're talking about everything, they're talking about the event? Are you using that as an advantage to you, or what happens for you when you watch someone like that?
So I'm definitely always listening, even if it doesn't look like I am, just in case they drop some useful information. But I think different people just kind of mindsets are different. The way they process things are different. I know, like even with Allie, before a competition or an event, she's more like joking around and kind of playful, whereas I'm more kind of stoic and serious and not super talkative. But that doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's just kind of how different people perform their best and where they're most comfortable. So yeah, I just kind of let them do their thing and talk whatever, and I listen in case they say something interesting about the workout. But other than that, I just kind of ignore them and hope they don't talk to me.
I was going to ask, and did James come up and talk to you at all in the warm-up area?
I don't think we talked a ton in the warm-up area. We talked a little bit kind of before and after the competition started. But yeah, no, we didn't talk too much in the warm-up area. It was a lot of him and Dalton talking a lot of the time.
It's just one of the things when I watch the vlogs back that I talk about, and I realized like I was just glued to the mic and the computer the whole day calling the events, that I like kind of missed out on some of those things of just seeing the way that you guys interact with each other. I'm sure some athletes stayed, but you also had several hours during the week, during the between events, you could come and go and do your different things. And for me, it's fun to be able to see how different athletes handle those things, and I kind of missed out on it. So I appreciate the guys that caught some of it on film, so I could kind of get a glimpse of that. And then the last thing go ahead. Well, the last thing I'll say about the crash, Colten, is like you said yesterday, it was Tuesday, and you got a full day of training in. And there was a lot of conversation last year with regards to certain, some of the major off-season events in particular, that they were a lot more volume than some of the athletes were maybe anticipating, and they were feeling pretty beat up at the end of that. What would you say about the volume and the demand of Crucible compared to maybe other off-season events that you've done? And is depending on what you say about it, is it a volume that you think is appropriate for an off-season event? Would you like to see a little bit more?
No, I think this was good. I mean, it's very similar volume to what you would see at like a semifinal, 7 scores over 3 days. I think that's kind of the sweet zone for an off-season event. I think any less than that, and then maybe you don't get enough tests in any more than that, and just kind of like encroaching upon games territory, which I think most athletes are not looking for during the off-season. And I mean, yeah, afterwards I felt decently good. Like you're always gonna, like you definitely know that you were in a competition just because the intensity is so high. So kind of regardless of the volume, you're gonna be a little bit sore, or maybe have like this or that that's a little bit tender. But I feel like it was not something that would be difficult to recover from. And I was texting JR and I said, like if I was competing at Rogue next week, I wouldn't at all be concerned about recovering and being ready to go again within that time span. So I think he did he kind of found a sweet spot with the volume.
Yeah, that's pretty cool actually. And there were a couple athletes in the Masters division that competed at Crucible after doing the Masters Fitness Championship a couple weeks, 2 weeks, I believe, 2 weekends before that. And so, and basically what that's suggesting is that you can program an off-season competition that has enough volume and skill and demand to assess a field for fitness without burying them into the ground where they need weeks to month to, recover from that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is kind of how you program the workouts, and even where you place them. Like I think it was event 5, it was got the 100 chipper. If that one's earlier on in the week, then people are probably going to be a little more beat up for the rest of the weekend. But putting that on the final day kind of allows you to kind of go full send and not worry about trying to recover for the remaining events. And so if you kind of extrapolate that out, and you had a competition where all 7 events are a beat down like that chipper kind of was, then it's a lot different. But JR did a good job of, like, day 2 was not a ton of volume. It was just the thruster ladder and the handstand walk course that offered like a good chance for athletes to recover, especially with the previous day being more of a pulling emphasis. The second day was more of a push emphasis. So that kind of put athletes in a good spot to not be destroyed going into the third day. So I think JR really has a high understanding of programming and kind of what athletes are capable of at the elite level. So I think that goes a long way with those tests and kind of the volume management and things like that. Just like a lot of subtle things you can do that help out a lot.
I'm glad you brought up the chipper. I think, if you don't mind, the last 100 reps of that was the squats with the kettlebells. I don't think you stopped during those squats. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
How mentally challenging is that for you? And do you feel like the place you have to go to mentally is something that you can learn, or something that you just have to kind of have or not have?
I do. I want to say it's something you can learn, but I guess it'd be impossible to know for sure. But I mean, it is something that it's like a door that you can kind of enter in your mind, and I've definitely gotten better over the years since I started this sport of being able to access that and kind of go into it easier and go into it more often. It's just kind of like it was really on the box jump overs when I kind of started that mindset for that workout where it's like, okay, now it's just, we have to go. And it doesn't, like, you're not going to get any breaks from here on out. You have to jump at this pace and transition at this pace and keep moving so you can catch a guy in front of you and then stay ahead. Yeah, you just kind of, it's weird. You just, like, your brain kind of goes to a different place and it kind of disassociates with what your body's feeling. And it's kind of like you're just kind of controlling what's happening, but you're not like having a response to it emotionally or otherwise. And you're just kind of letting it happen and just kind of ignoring like all the self-preservation things that are going on in your head and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it was because I mean, it's 70-pound squats. Everybody there is strong enough to do that 100 times. So it is really just a mental thing of whether you want to put it down or not and how much you're willing to suffer there to get a better score.
Yeah, because you guys were the last heat of the last division to do that test. Everyone did the same test. The women's weight's a little bit lighter. They did have to jump to the same box, which I kind of liked. And I was, calling all the heats, and I basically was saying you can do the last 100 squats in 4 minutes, and that's a pretty good like split time for those 100 reps. And you did it once again, about a minute, maybe even faster than that, relative to the next best people that were doing it. And that's part of the reason I wanted to ask you about it is I'm wondering if that's like if that mental, like you said, it's not heavy. Like everyone could do that,
Mm.
but the ability to open that door, as you say, to go that place in that mind, that might be the thing that's different about against when you're talking about someone who's qualified for the games 3 times and someone who's come up short 3 times.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference on the margins for sure. And even in training, just having that ability to go there. And I mean, I think it's a muscle and you can, something that you can practice just like anything else and get better at. And yeah, just kind of having that tool, but also you have to understand the consequences of that and how much that's going to affect you for the next events. And honestly, you kind of have to get to a level of fitness to where it doesn't matter. Like you can kind of sell out and be well enough recovered to sell out again for the next event. And that's something that I've noticed changed a lot from when I first started CrossFit and did like my first major event at Dubai to today is the ability to just like completely sell out and then recover and do it again, recover and do it again. Whereas back then I was like, I know I have to pull back a little bit because otherwise I'm not going to recover for these next events. And you just give up 5 seconds here on this event, 10 seconds on that event, and that just makes a big difference throughout the weekend.
Do you when you go out to competition like that and you compete, do you consider yourself a veteran, or do you still think you're a young competitor in the sport? I mean, you see some of these guys that are 20 and 22 years old, a few years to several years younger than you, and obviously there's other guys that you're still chasing that are in their 30s. How do you evaluate yourself against the field in that regard?
So yeah, I'm 25 years old, so I think I'm like a couple 2 years younger than what the median age would be for a games athlete. But my training age, I think, is younger than most people. Like I've probably been doing CrossFit for fewer years than a guy like James Spray. I started when I was 19, so I've been doing this for 6 years. Where as other people even if they're 22 years old. They started when they're 12. They've been doing this for a decade. So I mean, my training age is a lot younger than most of the people that I would compete against. But I feel like I'm kind of just turning that corner. I was actually thinking about this today because especially when I first started my CrossFit career, I compared it a lot to like my high school wrestling career in terms of like the progressions that I would make. Like my freshman year of wrestling, I got pinned in the first period in my first 3 matches, and then going from that to being undefeated up to the state finals my senior year, and just like trying to compare and see am I progressing in CrossFit like I progressed in wrestling. And there's a big shift going from my junior year to senior year mentally, where I felt like, all right, like I've arrived now. I have the confidence. I know how good I am, and I know what I can do, and that elevated my performance more than anything. I feel like a similar shift is finally happening in CrossFit, where I'm like, I know I belong at the games. I know I can compete with the best, and I have the confidence to do that now. And I'm kind of getting probably into that next mindset to where now I do feel like I'm more of a veteran and not so much a new guy anymore.
That's pretty cool. And speaking of the 19 years old, you might not have realized that you were actually passing some advice along to one of the younger competitors that we saw at Crash this last weekend. We weren't sure if Lydia Fish would be able to join us or not. Obviously, she's traveling there today.
Yeah, sorry, I'm in the car, so I'm not sure how great my reception will be.
Well, so far so good. We've had Colten on for about 40 minutes already, and he's talked about a variety of different things from this weekend. If anyone's just tuning in, Colten did get second in the men's division. Lydia took second place for the women over there.
Yeah, you too. Nice work.
Yeah, and they both had dominating performances. That was the cool thing about it.
And Lydia, you're I don't know if you heard that last thing that Colten said, but you're competing as 19 years old. He was talking about the fact that he kind of started in this sport at 19 years old, and it's been 6 years, and he's now kind of coming into a place in terms of mentality where he feels like he's a veteran, and he feel like he's evolved in that stage mentally. And there's definitely and that is an actual biological and psychological thing that happens for young men and women as they're coming through puberty and developing at different rates in the psychological realm. How do you assess yourself as a competitor, Lydia? Do you feel like you have a lot to learn, or are you happy with kind of the way that you handle adversity and competition right now?
I feel like you can always learn things, but since I was like up in sports, like always competing, I feel like that really helped because you just learn, how to deal with like the race, nerves and everything like that. So I definitely can learn a lot, but since I've competed in a variety of sports, I feel like I also have learned a lot.
When you when you go to these competitions, Colten is a very quiet individual, and he's talking about how he just observes and tries to take things in and often learns from other people. I didn't get to spend too much time with this weekend. Unfortunately, I was just talking the whole time. But how do you?
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, hopefully I did you guys some service in that regard. But what is it like for you as one of the younger girls that's out there? Do you just do more listening? Do you try to interact and learn with some of the older athletes? What's your kind of approach in that regard?
I feel like since I am at Training Think Tank, most of the times I get to like learn a lot from other athletes and coaches. So I learn a lot there. And then when it comes to competition time, like I'm not afraid to talk to anyone or like intimidated, or if anyone talks to me, it doesn't really throw me off. So I mostly just try to focus on myself during competition and not worry about what other people are doing. But I think you probably can learn by watching others at a competition.
And
Colten, do you I don't know how much interaction you had with Lydia, but do you have any words of advice just for an athlete like her? I mean, at 19 years old, she's seen, she's been to the semifinals. It seems like she has a path in. I don't know how you were at 19-year-olds. I mean, obviously you're competing with the team, but any advice for Lydia?
The best advice I could give would probably concern things outside of the gym. I know my friend group changed a lot when I was getting into CrossFit. My friends are pretty much only the people I would see at the gym. It wasn't the people like in my college classes that were going out drinking on the weekends or staying up late. So I mean, just avoiding those conflicting lifestyle factors, like going out and drinking or staying up late when you should be like recovering and getting your macros in and sleeping. Things like that will make a huge difference, not only in terms of like the progression of your fitness, but also in keeping you healthy. And that's something that I think is probably underrated. Just like if you can avoid like major injuries and even like the occasional illness that affects your training for a week, um, not only are you going to be able to keep making progress forward, but you're not going to have those major setbacks that you would have if you know, like tear something because you were overtrained as a result of under recovering and things like that.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
And Colten, what about in terms of competition? Maybe one thing that you would think is something that, man, I wish I knew this when I was 20 years old.
Yeah, so competing is definitely a skill. You always hear about and see the people who, you know, they're a games athlete in their home gym, and then they get on the competition floor and they are just totally different. So competing is a skill that has to be learned, and it's kind of there's a lot of nuances that are different for everybody in terms of um, mindset and how they like to kind of go by their day or their travel or their food, and it's kind of different for everybody. So, I mean, just getting in experience like you did here at Crash, just competing like often without necessarily the expectations of, you know, I need to come here and perform my best, but more of the mindset of this is practice for when I get to semifinals. This is practice when I get to the game, so that I'm learning these skills and developing these things rather than trying to learn them when it really counts.
For sure.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, Colton. Yeah, we don't want to take any more of your time. Appreciate it. We definitely love to have you back on. So if you have to get going, please feel free. But we don't want to keep you here if you got other stuff going on. But
I do have some training to get to, but I think
yeah,
thank you guys for having me on, getting to talk about Crash. I enjoyed that, and thank you for the work you guys did at Crash too. It was a lot of fun, and definitely gonna be trying to
pleasure.
come back next year.
Awesome, man.
Definitely.
Well, we will
Thanks
see
a
you
lot.
in Miami.
Awesome, thank you guys. See ya.
All right, Lydia, the spotlight is all yours now.
All yours.
Great.
And we did get a chance to talk to Colten a lot about this past weekend, and it was cool to get kind of his perspective as someone he's kind of done it all in the sport. I mean, he's competed at the games 3 times. He's competed at Rogue, Wadapalooza, Dubai. You know, he's traveled and had the close misses, had the successes. You know, and he's been doing it for a number of years. Your career is just kind of getting started. You do have access to a training environment that I think is very helpful and supportive and encouraging. You have a coach that seems to be very much invested in you and in your development. What's the process like for you of kind of deciding to compete at a competition like this? That's, you know, it's not one of those big ones, but it is. It's growing in terms of the people recognizing how prestigious it can be, and a good opportunity for the athletes, I think. What was the process like for you guys to decide to do this competition?
I knew I wanted to get like off-season competition experience and just get more experience learning how to compete and everything. And I heard a lot of positive feedback from my coach and other athletes in the past who have done this competition. And I knew it was like fairly close to where Training Think Tank is. Mm-hmm. So I thought like, hey, if I could get into this competition, that would be great. And I got to bypass the qualifier, which is pretty big, like when you're, you know, traveling and working and whatnot. So yeah, I decided it would be a good time of the year to kind of just test where your fitness is at and like get an excuse to come back to Georgia and train hard again before the season. So
There were a lot of training think tank athletes
Mhm.
there this weekend. Are there any of them that you have had previously a good relationship with, or maybe you got to develop a relationship with this weekend?
Yeah, I mean all of them. Hannah Hardy, she has the same coach as I do. Allison, she doesn't have the same coach, but we train at the same times a lot. And then Ellie Hiller, she has a training think tank coach. She doesn't train on site, but she'll come and visit sometimes. And I really love her as a person. She's very nice. And then Annalise, she also has a training think tank coach. I can't remember if anyone else does, but there are a lot of TTT
Yeah,
girls.
no time for those
Chloe.
guys. No
Yeah.
time for those guys like Mike Needleman and Kyle Ruth. We don't need anything to do with
Yeah.
them.
Oh yeah, they're old anyways.
Yeah, they have nothing to do with me.
How did you come across, or how did your relationship with training think tank develop? I mean, was that something you reached out to them, or I mean, at 19 years old, it's like, I don't know if that's something that you went and seeked out, I mean, how do you determine like training think tanks where I want to start my training for my CrossFit career?
I'd kind of like seen them on social media a lot and like known of their athletes like Alexis and Travis.
Hmm.
And I was like at a point where I was graduating high school and I didn't really want to go to college right away because I didn't know what I want to do. And I was like, hey, like I really want to compete in CrossFit. And my parents were like, hey, well, you should like go somewhere else. Like in this tiny town, you're probably not going to get where you want to be without outside help. And so we started thinking of places. And then one of my mom's work friends was like, oh, I listened to the TTT podcast. Like, I think you would really like them. And so we reached out. And yeah, that's kind of how it got started. I went down for a visit and then everything kind of fell in place.
So it's almost like college, where it's like a recruiting visit.
Yeah, I guess I had to fill out an application and everything.
Did you meet Ashley Wozni?
Oh gosh, yeah, we're pretty
Was she?
close.
That I love Ashley, but where are you from originally? You said small town, and you're on your way to Wisconsin. Are you from Wisconsin?
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Going back to shovel the snow. Didn't you watch our interview with Peter White?
I must have missed that. Sorry, Peter. I will do that. I will catch up. Um, but I was, again on your Instagram. I mean, how many? You don't have much competition experience, and like you said, this is something that you need to do, especially at 19 years old. Was this what, in terms of live competition experience, was this like your fifth live competition?
I've done Wadapalooza Teen Division 2 times, and then I did
Winning last year.
a local competition, and then
Mhm.
yeah, I guess this one.
Yeah.
So not too many.
And you are going to be doing Wadapalooza again this year.
Yeah.
And
Squeaked it
maybe if there's like one or two things that happened this past weekend that were for you, like maybe big milestones or things that, as you think back on it, are things you might take away from this one into some of the upcoming competitions.
Something I would take away is like the little wins, like for the thruster event. Like it was not an impressive score by any means, but just for me to see how far that I have come, because like some days you're just like, oh, I feel like I haven't gotten stronger, or when it's like such a big hole, it's hard to see progress. And so taking away like, look, you have PR'd your thruster 2 times, like you obviously are like in the taking steps in the right direction. So That's probably one of the biggest takeaways.
And I was hoping that you would bring that up actually, because we spoke with Brent Fikowski last week, and obviously he's been doing this for a long time and is very analytical of pretty much everything. And
Yeah.
he mentioned that he thinks that it's an important skill for athletes to have, to not just be able to, or to be able to separate the score, the result from the performance. And so even though you may have taken, I don't know, 19th or 20th, whatever it was on that thruster ladder, that's not the important thing. It's to be able to separate that from the reality is I went out there and I did this and this and this that we planned on, that we talked about, and then when it got to this point, we were going to see what happened, and I was able to do it. And that's the mindset that he looks for when he's trying to or evaluate his own performances, and then that he considers a growth mindset of sorts. And then for younger athletes like yourself to be able to express that, to me, is a very, very positive sign. So when I heard you talk about that, I thought that was really cool, because a lot of people would look at the leaderboard and be like, oh my goodness, she was so good on everything and she was just not strong enough on this thruster ladder, and that's what hurt her. And you're thinking about it the total opposite way, is
Right.
that that workout that you guys thought was my worst was actually, that was the biggest win for me. I see even your smile there, and like that's I think that is something that I'm happy to hear you say it, and it makes me feel good about your potential going forward. I don't know if that's a learned mindset or if it's something that you and your coach have talked about, but it's really cool that you're already there.
Yeah, it is really easy to become like negative about things and look at the leaderboard, but I feel like since working with my coach, we really like just focus on me and not really the field too much, so that has definitely helped as well.
And you mentioned a few of the athletes down there at Training Think Tank that you've been able to you spent some time with this weekend, and maybe some of them that you have trained with more regularly. Do you have any thoughts in general about whether it's better to spend some time in those training environments periodically, or is it maybe something that you want to aspire to do, to move there full time?
I'm kind of still in the process of like figuring what is best for me, because I think like each athlete handles that environment probably a little bit differently. I think for me, I've really seen a ton of progress being down there, but I also know that like it's not really the real world, or like I still have all my family at home and I have to work and stuff, which I know that I can't get a job down there, but I do enjoy my life back home. So I think right now I'm just trying to find a balance between times it's good to be home and then times that are good to be down there training. So I think that's still something I'm kind of trying to figure out, but I think it would be cool if I do make a profession out of the sport, if I could train there more.
What are you doing for work?
I kind of just do a lot of like odd jobs. Mostly I'm working at a restaurant back home, so yeah, mostly waitressing.
But you have like coworkers and people you work with,
Yeah.
and do they know what you do in terms of training and fitness?
Yeah, they know I do I work out because they make me carry all the heavy stuff and take out the trash, and yeah. So they know that, but I don't know if they're too familiar with like the sport itself.
You don't think they were watching this past weekend?
Only one person I think was, but they're all very supportive too.
It's funny you said that. Devin Kim, I don't know if you're familiar with Devin Kim. She she works at Texas Roadhouse, and she and I call her the world's fittest waitress. But she won with the Invictus team this past year, and her mom, I think her mom or dad was telling me that while she was competing at the games at Texas Roadhouse, they normally have like football games and basketball games on there. They had the CrossFit games on because of Devin there.
That's cool.
So when she came back to work, it's like they finally figured out what Devin did, like why she would take off work and do all this weird stuff. And then, but
Yeah.
yeah, she says the same things too. It's like whenever there's something heavy, it's like they ask her to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I
uh,
mean,
are
that's
you,
kind of probably in every job. Any fit person, they make do the heavy work.
that's
Unless
why
you
I
work at
stopped
a
working
CrossFit
out.
gym. Unless you
Yeah.
work at a CrossFit gym, then it's like everyone's
Right.
just vying to get it to do the work, or they're too
Yeah.
lazy to do anything that doesn't have to do with their training. What about your
Lydia, oh, Brian, I'm sorry.
what?
Lydia, are you driving right now, or do you have a parent with you or a relative?
Yeah. I have my boyfriend with me. He's driving right now.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's good. Can you talk about the importance? You mentioned it very briefly. Importance of your family supporting you and letting you fall. I mean, obviously, the norm is you graduate high school, you go to college, but you're taking a different career path, or at least pursuing something different. I mean, how much is that support? How important is that to have that from your parents?
Yeah, I think at first it was a little bit tough because they weren't super familiar with the sport or didn't really realize like people did this for a full-time job. But then I think once they started looking into it more and realized like, all right, well, I guess this is something you could do, and if you're gonna do it, we will support you. But like, obviously, you need to take steps in the right direction. And they're very supportive. Like, they always want to help me. I usually am like trying to be super independent, but they're very helpful, and so they help me with that. Mostly like financially, I would say I'm like on my own. Except like I don't pay rent at home or like the water bills or anything like that. So I feel like I was raised
Yeah.
very well to understand finances and like what it's like to be independent, but also have their support. Like, know that if I really need help, they're there, and they will support me like by encouragement and everything like that as well. So, and coming to my competitions
Well,
and yeah.
don't show them that big check you're bringing home, so they might start charging you rent.
Yeah, exactly. Even some nights I waitress, my mom asks how much I make, and she's like, geez, I might quit my job.
Well, that's a
Brian,
good.
you had
Yeah,
some
no.
question?
Have they? Has your family been? Have they been motivated or encouraged in terms of their own health and fitness because of what you do?
I would say like my family's very active. Like all the kids, we play sports, and my parents were athletes in school as well, and continued to like do active things. And I did just buy a bunch of equipment a few months ago and put it in my garage. So I guess they've been trying some things out. So yeah, I think they've been a little bit inspired, but not inspired enough to pay for a CrossFit membership.
No, but maybe once in a while you come home and you're just like, huh, look who's out in the garage messing around with my barbell.
Yeah, exactly. But I do charge my siblings $20 a month to use it.
That's an entrepreneur there.
And how many siblings do you have?
I'm one of 5, so I have 4 siblings.
Where do you fall in the lineup?
I'm second oldest.
And you said that all your family plays sports pretty much. I believe you were a swimmer growing up primarily.
I'm sorry, you kind of cut out. What was that?
You said most of your family has played sports, been active.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think
my mom, she played volleyball and was in track and basketball, and my dad was a really big runner. He ran in college too for a while, so yeah.
And did you and your siblings primarily do the same sports, or did kind of each of you had your own specialty?
We kind of all like got into running because of my parents, and then we all wanted to do other things. I did gymnastics for a while, and then I kind of ruined that for my younger sister because of, injuries and everything like that. So she's into basketball now, and We have some in football. So I would say, yeah, we all kind of do something different.
How much do you think that playing sports throughout your growing up and having that active lifestyle has contributed to what you're able to do in terms of CrossFit now?
Oh, a ton. I don't think I would be where I am today without the background in those sports.
Yeah, it's a topic that is coming up more and more as the sport is available and accessible, and it's an option for teenagers now, and to try to figure out what is the appropriate balance between pursuing CrossFit and playing some other kind of sports. And one of the other young athletes that was down at Crucible, Ty Jenkins, I'm not sure if you've gotten any chance to talk to him, but he's continued to swim and play baseball throughout his high school years while also competing at the top end of CrossFit, obviously winning the games this past year. And I think that is like, those are the athletes like you and like Ty that I would be encouraging young athletes to really look at and say, hey, you can be pretty good at this thing and still do other sports.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's only going to make you better in CrossFit because you learn different types of training and just different skills and coordination and developing other things. Whereas if you can tell when other people don't play sports, I think they're not as coordinated or just don't really learn how to compete too. Like in sports, you learn that aspect of competing. Like you have games and matches and meets, whatever, twice a week usually. So you get very used to that. So yeah, I think it's really important for kids to remember, like, still be a kid.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think Brian, like, he mentioned Ty, and I remember we had this conversation with Rich Froning, and Rich said the same thing, that he always encourages, like, especially young athletes, like, play a sport, do something. And if you look at a lot of the top athletes in the sport right now, I mean, Colten, who was just on, he wrestled in college, in high school. And then you look at someone like Fikowski, who played volleyball. You look at a Vellner, who did gymnastics. I mean, it's right up the board. They all have a background. So when I see these young athletes who just do nothing but CrossFit, it kind of like disheartens me, and I feel like they're missing out. And I think one thing they're missing out is also the mental aspect. Is one thing sports and competing teaches you is not just competitiveness, but also how to fail, not in a negative way, because not everyone's a winner when it comes to sports. There's going to be tough days, and I think that's one thing, especially as a young athlete, that if you can learn how to move past failing or not succeeding or winning and continue to move on, then I think it'll better suit you for the sport, especially an individual sport like CrossFit.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
PC, anything else you want to ask Lydia while we got her here?
No, Lydia. We appreciate you coming on. Safe travels back to Wisconsin.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Colton made that same trip himself, and I think what he said is, like, I think you said you went to Training Think Tank before you went to Crash. Okay, but one thing he did, I don't know if you heard it, but he mentioned something like he wished he would have got to the competition an extra day earlier. And that's just words. Any chance you get to, like, soak in wisdom from an athlete. Obviously you're surrounded by, you have a great coach. You have a bunch of great athletes, and you've been in your shoes as a teenage athlete like Ashley or Alexis. They've competed. Use those resources. And again, we appreciate you coming on. Drive carefully, and let's stay in touch. And we're looking forward to see what you do at Wadapalooza.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and for having me on.
All right, great to see you, Lydia. Great job this past weekend.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was nice of her to join us from the car.
Yeah, that was really cool. I thought it was really cool to just kind of bring her on. I mean, sorry, she's obviously someone that I think I know every year, at least the last 4 years, we've kind of done, like, our dark horses, young guns, as we used to call it, the morning chalk up. And she's definitely someone that I'm going to keep an eye on. I mean, there's a bunch. I was looking at that, like, what athletes going into this season that I think could potentially win the games. I do that all the time, and this year might be the toughest year. there's just so many
Who win
good
the
young.
games?
No,
Or to make it to the games?
to make it
To
to the
get to the
game. Sorry,
games.
make it to the games. This year, it's probably more. It was harder for me to even wrap my head around it because someone like Lydia Fish, who wasn't on my radar after Crash Crucible, she's on my radar now, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, and when you told me that she might be coming on, I just kind of looked back at the semifinals to see exactly how she did there, and she got off to a pretty tough start, and then she really ramped it up with her best 3 finishes coming at the last 3 finishes of the weekend, and especially did well on that high skill gymnastics, the second to last event on Sunday there. And she's competing out there in the East. It's really tough field. A lot of good women over there. And at a young age, she was able to put up some good performances. And you think about, okay, she ran really well. She did the high skill gymnastics well. And yeah, there were a lot of power output and a couple of strength elements in the programming at the semifinals this year that would be difficult for her against just some older and bigger girls. But with those skill sets of high skill gymnastics and running as kind of already things that are in her back pocket, obviously strength can develop over time, and there is certainly some potential there. And I did not pick her in the top 5 at Crucible. It was pretty difficult women's field for me to assess. So there was a lot of athletes, like you said, that were. I wasn't sure, especially with the demand of the skill and a couple of the different things that we never seen any of them do before. But she answered pretty much all the questions, and she did take a relatively poor performance on the leaderboard on the lifting event with the thruster ladder, but that's a massive. It was actually the biggest win for her of the weekend, and understandably so. So very encouraging, very nice of her to join us on the road there. And man, Colten Mertens, like, think about where he's come from in terms of just his ability to present in a format like this, and how much more clear he speaks, articulate he is in expressing his thoughts. And man, it was really refreshing to have him on.
Yeah, I mean, every time we come on these shows, I usually, like I said, me and my note cards, and the questions that I had for Colten is like, that we didn't get to, but he had to train, and we don't want to take up too much of these athletes' time. I mean, we find it, refreshing that they even take the time to join us for these. So, but I messaged him and thanked him for coming on. He's like, yeah, he had a good time. He's like, anytime we want him on, just give him a holler. So I'm going to hold him up to that, because some of these questions, him being a wrestler and an MMA fan, that's I would love to talk to him about that. And there's other things too, but yeah, Colten's really came into his own. You can really see that in his YouTube channel. He's done some good stuff there, and I know Rashad, his manager, has done a really good job with helping him out with that too. And want to send a shout out to Rashad for arranging this for us. But yeah, it was just really cool to have just that perspective, and I really wanted to get her on and have offer some advice for her. I don't think we see that too often in our space, especially in this platform where you have a veteran athlete like him who's been kind of in her shoes, and just offer some advice to a young and up and comer that he's not directly in competition with.
Right. Yeah, that was we did not know if she would be joining us or not. She said she'd try, and it was kind of just perfect timing that she logged in just as he was talking about being 19 years old and what the last 6 years have been like for him.
Yeah. So you have the weekend off, don't you?
Yes, I'm home this weekend, and it might be the only weekend I'm home for a while. But I'll be here, and we're having an event at CrossFit Charlotte Festivus. Then I'm going to help him volunteer on Saturday with a bunch of the members from the gym for that.
Nice.
But no, I'll be here for a week before we go down to Austin for Rogue.
Yeah. So yeah. And so next on deck is I don't think we have any shows the rest of the week. Monday we'll probably try to do a show on Monday, kind of a preview. We'll have the power rankings for Rogue out Monday as well, at least the men or women. We haven't decided if we're going to do them on separate days. And then Wednesday we both fly into good old Austin, Texas. And yeah, it feels like I haven't seen you. I mean, I've seen you, but we haven't been in the same place since the game. So it'll be kind of cool. Chad's coming in. We got Sebs. We got the whole team coming in to provide some coverage. Brian's going to be helping out with the broadcast, correct? With the Rogue broadcast.
I'll be doing something over there.
Nice. Well, good. Yeah, but yeah, it's some cool stuff coming up. Obviously, it starts ramping up, and like I think what after that you got Arizona. There's Wheelwad. There's Dubai. There's so much stuff you got going on.
Yeah, it's not the same as that 7 consecutive weeks on the road, but there are several consecutive weeks of competitions with, there's a week or 10 days off for Thanksgiving, and then I think it's 3 straight weeks leading up to kind of the Christmas and New Year's time. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the CrossFit world. Trying to be involved, trying to keep you guys up to date of the things that we think are cool, and certainly going to be some other stuff coming up as well. Just continuing to have conversations with people who want to have a big impact on their communities in different parts of the world, different parts of the country. And when we can, we'd like to be involved and support those.
Anything newsworthy that came out, last couple of days that you wanted to kind of talk about?
I don't know. Is there?
No. I feel like there's always something going on.
No, I mean, no, I know that one of the Spanish athletes, Martin Cuervo, had gotten a pretty late invite to Dubai. I'm not sure who had withdrawn from that for that to happen. Shelby Neal got an invite to Rogue pretty late. Also don't know who she's replacing there. Obviously, we'll find that out pretty soon as the competition's next weekend. Kind of waiting on the next shoe to fall from CrossFit in terms of, they're trickling out information with regards to next season, but nothing from them since the age group and adaptive announcement. A couple of those people have gone on and other platforms and talked about, what that looked like or what that was like to come to this point. So you can go and listen to those guys in some other places if you're curious about the people who are organizing the Masters Legends or the Pit Team Throwdown, and hopefully be able to talk to Kevin Ogar at some point about the Wheelwad and what that's going to look like, because I think it's going to be actually even a bit different than the other two. So yeah, just kind of waiting still in that regard, but I don't know if there's any if there's any other major news.
There was something I think I did text you too. It was regarding Dave's week in review, where he kind of basically stated that athletes who are within the age group that compete as individuals and team athletes will have the ability to compete as masters. So, and I guess what he was trying to let on is that he anticipates a few of those people to take advantage of it, which is kind of cool because for some of those masters athletes that, let's say, for instance, someone like Sam Dancer, who says he's committed to competing as an individual this year, he could go, if he makes the games, let's say he makes the games, he finishes, bottom half, he gets a nice little paycheck, $5,000-$6,000, but he can turn around in a week or two or whatever and compete in the 35 to 39 and defend his title again and have a potential to make 25 grand. So if that's indeed the payday for the Masters, the new Masters division. But I think it's kind of cool. It allows those Masters and those team athletes to kind of, there's a lot of Masters athletes that compete on teams. So it'd be kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, you had Caroline Klutz, who won the Crash Crucible for the Masters Women this year, and she's usually competes on Grit House's top team. She placed 5th actually in the semifinals for the 35 to 39 this past year, so she could have done both at the games in a different model. In theory, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns, like the timeline. When is the Masters Competition Legends Championship going to take place relative to the team or individuals games? The location, the prize money might be a factor, and then obviously, just the it's going to be more of the younger Masters, 35 to maybe early 40s that even would have a chance to do that. But I think you might see 1 or 2, but I don't think it'll be that many. It's still a big demand on the body.
It is, yeah. I wonder if someone like, because I believe Olivia Kerstetter has one more year eligibility in the teen division.
I don't think so.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, I don't know. But it does open up, let's say, someone like Trista Smith or Lucy McGonigal, who, let's say, they make it through the games. Who knows? But I doubt they would, because one, and this is something I've been a big proponent about for a while, is that the teen division is the only division that does not offer a payout, at the games. And, if there's nothing, especially for someone like those two athletes, if there's nothing gained out of it, why do it? But another bit of news, and Chad was really excited about this, was this whole Nike thing. And I've actually heard more and more people talk about this, like, oh no, what's going on? Is Nike, dipping into, CrossFit? Is this a direct competition with Rogue and blah, blah, blah? And I think a lot of people are just kind of overblowing it. And I think it's just, if anyone knows anything about Nike, is like Nike's always constantly putting they see an opportunity to make money, they're going to do it. One, because of manufacturing, and they profit off of just about anything they do. I do think some of the stuff they're doing is kind of cool. Like the bumper plates are recycled materials.
Yeah, and I mean, like
And,
they'll sell some.
I
stuff
don't
for
think this
sure.
has really anything really to do with CrossFit. I think more than. Mhm.
They'll sell some stuff for sure. When I think about this, I feel like I used to coach in high school in the part of the football team, and they that was in Texas, and they take that stuff kind of pretty seriously down there. But like you might have a weight room that's like outfitted by Nike, and that could be a university, it could be a professional sports team or something like that. So that's kind of where I would see these things on a maybe having a presence. And of course there's going to be some people that are have their own home gyms or whatever that are big Nike supporters, or just looking for something cool and different, that might buy this stuff. So I bet they'll do all right with it. I don't think that it's much of I don't see this as a competition with Rogue or any other manufacturer necessarily. I think Nike can still find their own way in this market, and maybe they'll last, and then maybe they won't. Are you there, Patrick? Well, might have lost Patrick here. That's all right. Well, I appreciate we'll probably just end the show anyway. We've been on for a while, so I appreciate you guys sticking with us. Those of you that have been supporting on Patreon, thank you. The pre-orders for the fall collection, appreciate all of that. And yeah, as Patrick said, we'll have some other stuff coming out in the next week, building up to Rogue, and then we'll be down at the Rogue Invitational to bring you guys some coverage from there. So thanks to Colten, thanks to Lydia, thanks to Patrick, and we will see you guys next time. Stay friendly, our friends.
Sorry about that. Looks like we got kicked out. So, yeah, StreamYard just kind of like crapped out on us. But yeah, so we'll just kind of end it on that. Just going to again just thank everyone for showing up. Thank obviously Lydia and Colten, and we look forward to helping you out. A couple other things. Yeah, that's happy birthday to our boy Carlos Bone, Anna Tunnicliffe or Anna Tobias. Happy birthday to her. And then we want to send our kind of like our best, our prayers and wishes to Lauren Fisher and her family, whose her mother passed away due to ovarian cancer a week ago, and she still plans on competing at Rogue and other competitions in honor of her. So just wanted to send our thoughts and prayers to her family, her brother Garrett as well. So, but again, thanks everyone for joining us. And as always, be friendly, our friends.